Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. There's an evacuation alert right now in place for Old Crow, Yukon, due to a risk of flooding along the Porcupine River. The alert applies to most of the community on both sides of the airport. If you are in evacuation zones 1, 2, and 3 that you can see on that map, be ready to leave at a moment's notice. The alert says they'll begin evacuations if water rises and quickly crosses the dump road. In that case, officials will go door to door. They're advising people to prepare emergency bags. Warmer temperatures are causing the Porcupine River to melt quickly. Officials expect ice jams to form and for breakup to happen sometime over the next 3 days. And in the Northwest Territories, NWT Fire is warning of high wildfire risk in some regions this weekend. In the South Slave, the risk will be high to extreme. In the North Slave, it'll be high. And in the Dutcho, it will be medium to high. NWT Fire says there will be frequent lightning, strong winds, and warm, dry weather, all of which make it easier for wildfires to start and spread. A Winnipeg man has been charged with defrauding the Kikitani Inuit Association of over $2 million. Most of that money has been recovered, but this wasn't the only fraud case that happened in Nunavut last year. Emma Tranter has the details.
An email scam in November 2024 led the Kikitani Inuit Association to lose $2.2 million. 23-year-old Chukwuma Uruchulu was arrested in Winnipeg on April 22nd. He was charged with 1 count of fraud over $5,000. The money was taken from QIA when a third-party organization was hacked. The perpetrator used a hacked account to send fraudulent banking information, according to the RCMP. But this isn't the only case of someone losing millions last year. RCMP put out a notice last November warning people about an increase in fraudulent activity in the territory. They also told CBC News at the time that nearly $3 million was lost in a single spearfishing incident. RCMP spokesperson Sergeant George Henry says this is not the same incident, and the other case is still under investigation. In a separate news release, QIA said it has recovered $2.1 million of the total $2.2 million lost, and that no projects will lose funding. Uruchulu was taken into custody. He'll appear in court in Iqaluit on May 27th. Emma Tranter, CBC News, Yellowknife.
In the Northwest Territories, the Gwich'in Tribal Council owes money to its new Grand Chief. It's part of a complicated legal battle that started last summer when Frederick Blake Jr. was elected and the Tribal Council refused to accept his win. A judge eventually declared Blake the winner. Then Blake wanted his rival and former Grand Chief Ken Kikavicic to pay his legal costs. Today, a judge ordered Kikavicic to pay 30%. The Gwich'in Tribal Council has to pay 70%. The parties still have to figure out the total dollar amount. A Yellowknife MLA says there's less desire in her riding for a formal inquiry into the 2023 wildfire season, but there's still no sense of closure for some. There were strong calls for a public inquiry in the months following the 2023 wildfires, including from MLAs. NWT MLA Kate Reid says those calls are quieter today. She says the after-action reviews into the 2023 wildfires helped, but there's still a lot of trauma. She questioned the Premier about it today. Take a listen.
Will the Premier acknowledge that the evacuation did not go right on many fronts, as outlined in the after-action review, and apologize to residents of the Northwest Territories? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You know, the member spoke about the collective trauma that we all experienced, and I agree. That is something that, as a territory, we have to come to grips with. The other day, I was thinking that, boy, this is the best time of year. It was, early May, it was spring, and I just it felt like a punch in the gut because the last few years, they haven't been great. It's been a really tough time, and I acknowledge that. And, to the member's question about the evacuation, I want to note there was evacuations. There was 12 communities evacuated a total of 14 times. So this is not just a Yellowknife evacuation issue. This was an issue around the Northwest Territories. And obviously, things did not go as there were many areas where things didn't go well. I've been saying that since I stood up in this House and ran for Premier. That's one of the reasons I wanted to get into this House and into this role, is to address the deficiencies that I saw, that I experienced during that evacuation. And so that is the work that began on day one when we formed government. And with this after action review, we're going to make sure that we are implementing the recommendations based on the review that we're doing of that report, because we want to make sure that what we saw, the deficiencies that happened, don't happen again. And so, this is something that happened in the past years ago, and I'm sorry to those residents who had, terrible experiences. Many of us had bad experiences, Mr. Speaker. We're all coming to terms with it. I was an evacuee. My colleague from Hay River was a first responder. And so, we had completely different experiences. And there's unique experiences across the territory. Some people was no big deal for them. Other people, it was devastating for them. And I feel for them, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The most recent after-action review was released earlier this month. The GNWT says it's already working on some of the recommendations. It says it'll officially respond to the review later this summer. A fire broke out this morning at Selkirk Elementary School in Whitehorse, just as classes were about to start. The CBC's Joseph Ho was on the scene.
I'm standing here at Selkirk Elementary in Whitehorse, and as you can tell, the fire trucks are leaving the school. They were called here earlier this morning because of a fire. Now, everybody was safe, but the school was closed for the day. The kids were sent onto the soccer field, and throughout the morning, parents have been showing up. They've been picking up their children. They've been signing them out with their children's teacher. It's been an eventful morning, but also an unexpected early start to the weekend. Joseph Ho, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Now, CBC News has just learned this hour that the fire started in a compost bin on the school's second floor. That's according to the principal of Selkirk School in a message to parents. According to that message, the fire was human-caused and is under investigation. There was limited damage to the school. The school will remain closed on Monday, and classes are set to resume on Tuesday. For the first time in nearly 20 years, a Northern MP has a position in cabinet. Rebecca Alty was appointed as Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations at a ceremony earlier this month in Ottawa. She's a rookie MP, but not a rookie politician. Alty served as a city councillor and mayor for Yellowknife. She says she had no idea she would be asked to be a cabinet minister, and then she got a call from the Prime Minister.
Pretty surreal. It was Friday at 6 p.m. I had just checked in for my flight to head back to Yellowknife, and the Prime Minister called and asked if I'd consider the role. So had to quickly change my flight to be here for the swearing-in ceremony that was coming up early the next week. But really exciting. And then taking a deep breath and started to kind of dive into the issues just on my own and before getting the department and partner engagement opportunities.
Alty says she's looking forward to expanding her knowledge of Indigenous issues across Canada and taking the lessons she learns back to her constituents in the NWT. Nunavut's Minister of Family Services faced scrutiny this week in the legislature about how some group homes in the territory are run. Today, an MLA questioned Margaret Nekashuk about 2 deaths at the Naya Isabel home in Chesterfield Inlet in 2023. RCMP investigated but found no criminality in the deaths, but a third-party investigation did find issues with how the home was being run. The MLA for the region says the deaths have cast a dark cloud over the community.
Chesterfield Inlet residents have felt the burden of judgment. The minister's silence on this matter has not helped to elevate the sense of blame.
When Sumuktuk asked for an apology from the minister, Nekashuk wouldn't give one, citing the RCMP investigation. But she acknowledged that more support was needed for residents. A similar question also came up on Thursday when a different MLA grilled Nekashuk about another issue involving a group home in the territory. In February, the Nunavut government shut down a group home in Cambridge Bay following an investigation into child harm.
Can the minister provide an explanation of why her department failed to ensure that services were being safely and adequately provided at the Nunavut Care Services home in Cambridge Bay?
Nekashuk said she couldn't speak to that specific facility, but the department made daily visits to make sure the children were supported. Canada Post is still delivering the mail after threatening to start a general strike. The union is considering an offer, but as Thomas Dagler reports, in the meantime, customers may experience delays.
Yes, that letter or parcel is still on its way, at least for now, after a last-minute decision by the Canadian Union of Postal Workers to call off a full-blown strike, a move that threatened to disrupt all deliveries beginning today.
We want a fair collective agreement that is workable for the post office.
The union is now telling its 55,000 members to boycott any overtime, leading Canada Post to warn some deliveries may be arriving late.
Their volumes are down considerably. Everything's gone to the competition, or they're holding on to it. And the further we prolong this, the longer they're going to wait. Nobody wants to get burned again.
Many customers hold bitter memories of holiday parcels delivered only after Christmas, with that month-long strike last year leaving Canada Post in limbo, and now serving a double whammy to small business owners like Don McCowan at his hobby shop in Toronto.
We don't have the nest egg. We lost that in the last strike. So it's harder for us this time than it was, back then.
He says the uncertainty is leading to a drop in his online sales and profits. Both Canada Post and the union blame each other for not budging in brief talks on Thursday night, with weekend work one key sticking point, and Cup W staunchly opposing their employer's plan for a separate part-time workforce.
This has been a non-starter from the union from the beginning, and I'm just not sure how you get around that as we go forward.
The Postal Service handed the union a 750-page package of offers earlier this week, and that's still on the table. For now, the union will only say it's still reviewing those proposals. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
We have a correction from a story last night about a fire that burned down a multi-purpose facility in Tasiuyak, Nunavut. We stated that the building included housing for transient workers. In fact, one person lives there permanently. To the Yukon now, where placer miners toil for gold in places like Dawson City, mostly in small family-run operations. It's a tough living, made tougher now because some of their licenses are expiring, while their renewal applications are backed up with the government. As Chris McIntyre shows us, this has serious consequences for miners.
It's just about 20 operations, I believe, that are currently without a renewal license. So their licenses have expired, and their renewals are in the system somewhere.
That's Will Fellers. He's the president of the Klondike Placer Miners Association. He's also a placer miner himself. Fellers says no licenses means no work. And for a small operation, that could be devastating.
And there are people that have had their licenses in the process. They've submitted them up to a year or 2 years ago. There's not really much they can do because they are not legally allowed to be on the land anymore in that fashion. So, we're supposed to pack up everything and vacate the property.
Fellers says to move equipment that has been accumulated over the years could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. He says few may be able to swallow the cost, but many will go bankrupt. Fellers says the KPMA has been raising this issue with the Yukon government for years, warning that there would be a major wave of renewal applications coming in all at once so that the territory could manage the influx of applications to keep the industry moving. Fellers says the government clearly hasn't listened and has left many miners at risk of losing their mining season or their jobs completely.
We're not hearing our voices in the processes that they're working on. We're not, with all the information that we put out to them, we don't see a lot of it, the important stuff getting put into the processes that they're doing, and we don't have a resolution to get our miners back to work in time for this season. So, like I said, we've got those 19 miners that as of today aren't allowed to go, or they don't know if they're even going to be allowed to go to work this season. So, and what do we hear? 2 more weeks.
Fellers says with no resolution and no clear communication from the government, his association has decided to pause all engagement and high-level discussions with the territory. CBC News reached out to the Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources, John Stryker, for comment, but he was unavailable. Cabinet Communications sent a statement that said it respects KPMA's decision to pause discussions, but remains committed to collaboration with the association and the placer mining industry.
We're all trying to do the right things. We're all trying to keep people working. We're all trying to keep people working legally. And I just hope we can all come out of this and not lose the industry.
Feller says if something doesn't happen and soon, it could be devastating for the entire industry. But more importantly, the men, women, and families who rely on placer mining as their livelihood. Chris McIntyre, CBC News, Dawson City.
Chris also talked to a former advisor for the Klondike Placer Miners Association. Brooke Rudolph resigned from her role over the weekend out of frustration over this, and she says there's a solution.
Just extend the licenses that are about to expire or have expired and provide the time that the various regulators need to assess these renewal applications. That's what we need. If YESAB is going to take 11 months and it's going to take another 90 days to get a decision document and then a whole bunch more time at the water board because they're all at capacity and they're all dealing with, every application in front of them, then that's not a problem. But the placer industry can't be shut down and put out of business because it didn't get done on time.
Rudolph says 59 placer mining licenses are at risk of expiring this year and 200 more licenses over the next 3 years. The licenses have to be renewed every 10 years. A proposed new bylaw about dogs in Iqaluit has sparked controversy. It plans to kill loose dogs in the city 24 hours after they're impounded. Mahnur Mubarak has more.
The proposed changes would mean the city can euthanize dogs 24 hours after they're captured. The current minimum period before a dog is euthanized is 72 hours. Janelle Kennedy is the president of the board of directors of Nunavut Animal Rescue and an Iqaluit resident. She says that the proposal won't solve the number of loose dogs in the city and doesn't address the issue of uncontrolled breeding. She says every 2 months, a new litter can be born.
If we have people who are producing litter after litter of puppy, then the puppy that you just killed will be replaced by another puppy within 60 days. So you're not addressing that issue. So all you're going to do is you're going to constantly have a new dog replace the one that you just disposed of.
Iqaluit dog owner Patrick McDermott also disagrees with reducing the amount of time a dog is held before it is euthanized.
How is it? Why would 24 hours be better than 72? As a teacher, I keep my phone actually on vibrate mode, and I don't necessarily hear the phone be called.
Mayor Solomon Awa says the city has been getting mixed responses, but their proposal is about safety. Some asking for more action to be taken against loose dogs, and others wondering why the hours were reduced.
We have to support our residents, especially children, especially when they like to play out, and it's fun to be out all the time.
The proposed changes does allow extra holding time for dogs captured after hours, like on holidays or weekends. The changes would also mean officers will make reasonable attempts to contact owners if the dog has a city license tag. Council unanimously voted in favor of the bylaw amendment earlier this month. Third and final reading will happen at a future council meeting. Mahnur Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
We've reported on the veterinarian shortage in the north before. It's also a significant struggle right across Canada. 3 Western provinces recently renewed their commitment to veterinary education with a multi-million-dollar funding announcement. But as Ashwara Duda reports, the support doesn't come with any new spots for additional students.
Inoka Gamaj has been a veterinarian for 20 years, 7 of them in Canada. Most days, she doesn't get time to breathe, working 10 hours or more.
It's hard. Sometimes you feel that you feel really down at the end of the day with all the burnout and the workload.
Her Saskatoon clinic is fully booked. Walk-ins often turned away. Emergencies, though, still make it through.
It's a very difficult situation, but if they walk in with really, really sick animal, we cannot turn them around and say, go away.
Saskatchewan, BC, and Manitoba have renewed a multi-million-dollar agreement. It provides $194 million to the Western College of Veterinary Medicine at the U of S over the next 5 years. But it won't add any spaces for new students.
We don't have any space. We're full up. We've got 88 spots and we have 88 students and we have a high demand for those seats.
That includes 25 seats for Saskatchewan, 20 for Manitoba, and 40 for BC. There are no spots for international students. Gamaj says that's a missed opportunity. She immigrated from Sri Lanka and completed a bridge program in Ontario.
There's not such program other than the continuous education programs after becoming a vet, but to get the license here, we need some kind of bridging programs.
Since the pandemic, she says the number of pets has increased and the number of vets hasn't kept up. She says there's also a lack of specialty clinics in the province. But for now, Gamaj leans on her love for animals to push through the exhaustion.
The fur babies make a difference in our life.
Ashwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The Haines Beer Festival is this weekend in Alaska. It comes at a time of political tension between Canada and the United States. All 3 breweries from Whitehorse will be attending, but some with reservation. The CBC's George Moranis reports.
For a decade, Marko Marjanovic has attended the Haines Beer Festival. This year, the owner of Winterlong Brewing in Whitehorse almost stayed home.
Oh, it was super hard. We were super hesitant. We flip-flopped every day until maybe 2 weeks ago.
Marjanovic says the trepidation was fueled by several factors.
Obviously, there was, problems with the border crossing. We have 120 liters worth of beer. We have to somehow get across the border in times of increased border security and unknown tariffs, and so that was one of our biggest issues.
Another factor, continued rhetoric from the Trump administration. After meeting with other Whitehorse brewery owners, they've decided they'll head to Haines.
We thought if we could go to the Haines Beer Festival and have a Canadian presence, then it would make sense to go. And so we brewed a beer called Glorious and Free. And Glorious and Free is a trans-Canada brewery collaboration, and it's all Canadian ingredients, 100% Canadian. And so it was sort of our cheeky Canadian way of saying, hey, yes, we're here, we're in America, but we're Canadian, and we make Canadian beer, and just so you know, we are a country, and we're not a state, and here we are. That was one of our biggest reasons to go down and just sort of educate people down there.
At Woodcutters Brewery in Whitehorse, Scott Shaler is looking forward to the weekend, but he admits this year does feel a little different.
A little bit of apprehension, but also some excitement. I'm a beer guy, so and lots of my friends are brewers on both sides of the border here. Haines, the city or the municipality, has put a lot of effort into making this beer fest, and I would not want it to lose its momentum after 20 years, I think, or something like that, 25, I'm not sure the exact number. And it's in the brewing world, we try to help each other out. Like if I'm missing a part or a part is broken, I can actually reach out to, say, a brewery here or a brewery in the States, a close one, if we're in dire need. It's mostly trying to do the right thing, and I'm not a big fan of tariffs. We'll just leave it at that.
The Haines Beer Festival is this Saturday, and the brewers aren't the only ones with some reservation. Normally quick to sell out, tickets are still available. George Moratis, CBC News, Whitehorse.
It can be a source of bragging for gardeners, how long the fruits of their labors last. A Yellowknife gardener recently posted online about eating a deliciously crisp, crunchy carrot that he grew last summer. And Shannon Scott just had to see his storage system. Check it out.
We are in a little 6 foot by 6 foot and maybe 4.5 feet tall cellar that I built below my entry in my house downtown in Yellowknife. I thought I only had beets left, and then I was digging in the peat moss looking for a beet for supper, and I came across another carrot. I was like, woohoo, I got another carrot. And it was a big one. It was like, when it's lasted through the entire winter and it's May already, and you have this beautiful, perfect carrot that came from your own garden. It tasted amazing still. I hardly buy any food. I don't buy any fruits, I don't buy any vegetables, and I don't buy any meat. My food bill is like so low. So the peat kind of insulates the vegetables, keeps them from getting damp. So the peat slowly over the winter kind of absorbs a bit of the moisture from the vegetable, but it prevents any condensation, so you don't get any mold or mildew on them. And what I do is I put a layer of peat and then a layer of vegetables, and they're separated so they don't touch each other. Because if they're touching each other, that's a place where the moisture can build up and they can mold and go bad. So you space them out and then put another layer of peat, another layer of vegetables, and just build up until the bin is full.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.